Well, this little section should be short. When I think of Galaxy architecture, I think of a couple principles, and I just wanted to go over them really briefly. I think of them as sort of the guiding principles of the core code architecture of Galaxy. Um, so the aspirational goals for the front end or the web UI, it aims at consistency and it aims to be highly opinionated. The back end, on the other hand, is guided by flexibility. It's meant to be driven by plugins wherever possible. So what do I mean by an opinionated front end? Well, the front end has a very specific audience, and it's a bench scientist. Someone presumably who has no knowledge of programming, paths, command lines should not be assumed. Um, Consistent colors should be used, fonts should be the same, themes should be consistent, right? So we put a lot of effort into a very consistent experience here. Reusable components are built for presenting common widgets, and we try to reuse these as much as possible, from very generic things such as forms and grids to very specific things like representations of tools and histories that are very tied to Galaxy. The front end, unlike the back end, is very tied to specific technologies. It's implemented in JavaScript. All front ends are essentially built with Webpack, but we use Vue.js throughout for component definitions. The backend, on the other hand, sort of is meant to be driven by pluggable interfaces wherever possible. For instance, SQL Alchemy is used as a sort of abstraction layer between Galaxy and its database, and it allows plugging in a couple different backends for databases. We're getting away from MySQL support, but in theory it's possible, and people have run it in the past. And this abstraction layer should let us, swap out Postgres if we ever find something better. Many different cluster backends or job managers are supported. It's sort of transparent to the user whether a job is running locally on a remote Kubernetes cluster or through Condor. Likewise, many different front-end proxies can be used to support Galaxy, Nginx, Apache, etc. So it can be adapted to your institution and its sort of needs and common deployment patterns. And also supports different like Python application containers. We use UWSGI, but there are reasons to not, and we support those. Different storage strategies and technologies are supported for the storage backend, S3, iRods, just pointed out BigNFS, etc. And then even the application components are driven by plugins wherever possible. Tool definitions, job metrics, middleware, tool dependency resolution, workflow modules, data type definitions, etc. They're all plugins. So a big topic of this architecture, of the architecture slides here, is a description of these plugins. So there is a caveat here. It's plugin-driven backend, but Galaxy has long been guided that the principle that cloning it and calling run.sh, a script that's deployed or shipped with Galaxy, should just work, and it should work quickly. So we do a couple things that sort of ensure this works as quickly as possible. Here's things Galaxy doesn't require. Compilation. So it will fetch binary wheels for your platform if it's one of our supported platforms. You don't need to have GCC available, etc. Galaxy will act as its own job manager. So if you don't have Slurm, if you don't have the Kubernetes job runner, Galaxy will just act as one. Galaxy doesn't need an external database server. It will just use SQLite if you're running it without any configuration. We don't recommend doing this for production, but it's a possibility. And we don't really need a web proxy or external Python web server either. Galaxy will sort of, run.sh will take care of those details and make sure you're running in UWSGI when you start it. So just to restate what we said before, Galaxy frontend is architected with the bench scientist in mind first and foremost, and the Galaxy backend is architected with Galaxy administrators in mind first and foremost. So the front end aims for consistency, and the back end aims for configurability and pluggability. Great, thanks.